I'm 60, and I'm doing what I'm doing today because of what I did when I was your age. I came of age in the 80s. The 80s were a time when Ronald Reagan was the conservative champion, and George Herbert Walker Bush, father of W, was his vice president and then followed him for a term. That Republican Party looks nothing like this Republican Party. If that Republican Party were the Republican Party of today, I'd still be a member of it. 60% of the House and the Senate in the 80s was comprised of moderates. 60%. Today, there are none left.
I'm wondering how you would go about getting more moderates elected today, because it looks very grim from my perspective.
Yeah, it really does. And it's grim because of a number of factors. Closed primaries are a problem. Listen, I fault the media because I think that we've ceded the ground to the loudest voices. What gets mouse clicks? What gets ears on a radio channel or eyes on a television program? It's the extremists who are among us. And until people recognize that they've got to stop mixing up their news and entertainment and move around the dial and take in all sources, then we're never going to get out of it.
What was the process of leaving the Republican Party like?
It was ugly because of the way in which my change was greeted. There was zero tolerance among my AM radio listeners for the idea. I was perceived on the right as a total turncoat. And yet I think that anyone who'd been listening carefully to the program and hearing what I was saying would not have been surprised. Of all issues, what drove me away from the GOP at the end of the Bush years was the way in which we were fighting or not fighting, in my opinion, the war on terror. I thought we'd taken our eye off the ball. We made a left turn and went into Iraq, and we invaded Afghanistan in a way that we didn't need to do. And it was no longer about finding and killing bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri. I can no longer trust the leadership. This issue affected me, and I don't like the way the people I've been voting for are handling it or not handling it.
Based on recent rulings, this has been a lot more prevalent in the conversation. So I was just curious if you have any ideas of Supreme Court reform you'd like to see, or if you think it's good how it is.
What Supreme Court reform do I want to see? Let me think about it. I think my answer is none. Elections have consequences. This is the game. These are the rules. And because you don't like the outcome of the overturning of Roe, well, in the next presidential race, when a guy like me, who's an attorney, is on air and saying, hey, don't forget, the second most important power that a president holds, meaning beyond being commander-in-chief, is the role of the federal judiciary and the appointment power, then start listening and voting as a result. No, we're going to pack the court? No. Because we don't like the result? Nope, not my solution. The Republicans are much better, much more sophisticated in terms of handling the judicial issue. The answer to that is, Democrats, you better get better. And, Trump came into office without a clue in terms of how he was going to operate. Chris Christie had been in charge of the transition. I think the binders got thrown out. There was no plan, with one exception, and that is that the Federalist Society was standing there poised with candidates who'd been vetted, very well credentialed on paper, academically, and they were able to say, here you go, Mr. President, pick from the menu. Ding, 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 3 appointments. Wow. The only way I'll amend my off-the-cuff answer about am I going to change anything, and I don't know how this would happen. I thought it was disgraceful that Barack Obama was denied a pick of Merrick Garland, and that Mitch McConnell was able to hold that, hey, it's an election year, and we're not going to have a nomination for the Supreme Court, and that was ridiculous. So maybe if there's a way to establish some ground rules about when you can make an appointment to the Supreme Court, I would go along with that.
How do you get independent people to become more passionate about voting as independents?
It's my life's work. This is what I do. Why am I speaking to you? Because Billy said there are 26 young Americans interested in politics. I'm like, great. Let me go out there and try and, encourage them to get active in politics, especially if they're against the status quo. I don't know what else I can do. I use both of my platforms and my social media platforms with this goal in mind, to make people recognize the harm that comes from being hunkered down in one perspective and not being open to dialogue, and letting people who are in the center, somewhere between the extremes, recognize the power that they would have if they would only exercise it. There's no magic pill that I'm aware of. I wish there were.
Where do you stand on gun control versus gun rights?
I think that the Heller case in the Supreme Court was wrongly decided. Justice Scalia and the idea of what does a militia mean, to me, it's plain as the writing. We don't live in a time of a militia unless you're talking about the National Guard. I fear that ship has sailed.
Okay. Marriage equality, is it going to stand the test of time with the Supreme Court?
I hope that it does. I think that if Justice Thomas believes that marriage equality is up for grabs, then marriage as between individuals of different races seems to me should also be up for grabs. Think about that.
Healthcare in America, single payer, universal, or keep it the way it is?
I like Obamacare. Obamacare was villainized before your time, paying attention, as being socialism. Well, you're looking at someone who purchased, when the exchanges finally opened, health insurance for his family based on Obamacare. What is socialistic about going online, having 24 options, different prices, different plans, all from private insurers, and just like Amazon or Airbnb, selecting which one you want for you? I thought it made total sense, and the only way to be able to provide, I feel like I'm running for office now, the only way to be able to provide health insurance for people with prior disabilities is if everybody gets into the pool. Right? It's an insurance pool that we are creating. And if you want to keep healthcare costs reasonable, everybody needs to get in. And that includes young invincibles, because we need people your age getting health insurance so that the person who has a prior disability or the person who's older and has a lot of different conditions, that they're covered, because nobody wants to insure them. Everybody wants to insure you.
Last we spoke was in 2019. We had no idea the pandemic was coming or George Floyd's murder was coming in the summer of 2020. In light of also talking about the summer of 2020 and race relations in America, the second part of the question is, are you optimistic about our future?
I did this as a survey question. Every day on my website is a survey question. A, because I'm interested to know what people are thinking. B, because I want to drive you to the website. Okay? One of my survey questions recently was, are you more optimistic or pessimistic? Is that glass half empty or glass half full? And I was in the pessimistic category for the first time in my life. And what prompted me to even raise the subject is that our family just had this really nice 2-week European vacation. And I came home in a funk, having looked at all the Uvalde happened while I was traveling, and I looked at the headlines that had been occurring, and they were all so depressing, and just no light seemingly at the end of the tunnel. And then I came home and I read a couple of studies that said many Americans are feeling, the word that was used was a sense of foreboding. And I'm in that category. Yeah, I'm more concerned than I am optimistic. And the only hope that we have is that you guys, girls, boys, men, women, are going to turn it around.